So anyway, I'm really looking forward to listening to your story, Liz. I know I read
Okay.
it in your book here. That was wonderful. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
sending me a copy.
Yes.
And yeah, really enjoyed it. And I know that it will really help, I'm sure, so many people. It's really lovely to have stories of people who've gone through it themselves as well. So I know you struggled with pain for about 14 years, didn't you?
I did, yes. Having said that, I mean, I wasn't like sort of in horrendous pain all the time, which
Mhm.
in itself was probably strange, because I used to, it never once occurred to me that it was in there. But, you know, I had good times. I had a holiday in Austria, for example, when I went walking in the mountains and had hardly any problems. I don't know. I did do a different exercise regime on that occasion, but
Yes.
um,
Certainly, it sounds like with your book that although you had
but
it most of the time, you were most of the time able to carry on with your life and get on with things.
yes, there were just a few occasions that I was sort of literally sort of curled up on the sofa wanting to die. But I think that's probably true of a lot of people in chronic pain, very low. And I think the thing that makes me really angry, I suppose, is that it was as if, oh, well, nobody knows the cause of this. You've just got to live with it, kind of thing, you know. And whereas there were answers, but just,
There
and
were.
I know you've picked it up, but the ones I first discovered were in America, and Dr. Sano had been treating people since the 60s, but it hadn't got through to mainstream medicine here.
No,
You
and it
know,
hasn't got through to mainstream medicine in America or anywhere else either.
no,
We're still fighting that battle, but
yes,
the change is happening.
it is,
And
I
the
know.
important thing is to recognise that you know, every practitioner you saw was doing the best they could with what
Oh,
they knew.
absolutely. I remain tremendously grateful to them. One of them has just read the book and
Wonderful.
has given me glowing emails reply.
Lovely.
Another physiotherapist has just received, yes, it's just been sent to her, and she's her secretary said she'd received it, and so I'm interested to know what she'll make of it. My chiropractor, who was very nice, has been on holiday, so I have sent her one, but she won't have read it yet. So I have tried to send it to some of the people who treated me in the past.
So,
And
and it is all about this, isn't it? Everybody playing their role.
yes,
You know, that
yes,
having written this book, you have such a wonderful opportunity to raise awareness as well. And starting out by sending it to people that you saw yourself. And how wonderful is that?
well, thank you. One of them, the first one who's sent me a glowing reply, he has actually retired and he's busy rewilding things, which is another very worthwhile project of his.
Yeah.
The other two, the physiotherapist and the chiropractor, are still practicing. I've also recently been working, I've moved house, I think that
Right.
came across. I've been working with a new physiotherapist recently for arthritic knees, and you can tell me about that. But I've given her a copy, and she not only said that she would be happy to read it, she said that everybody in her practice was quite tuned into this, and that they often referred people to psychologists as well as, you know, themselves. So
Yeah.
I thought
So
that
good.
was,
So maybe they will begin to realize there's more that they can do themselves, because arthritis is just a normal wear and tear. We all have arthritis. You
I
know,
know, but
whether it's arthritis in the back,
yeah,
or you know, degenerative disc disease, or any other disc problem, it's arthritis. It's wear and tear, and that's
yes,
just normal. It's
yes,
the pain that there's been no evidence to link somebody's arthritis with the amount of pain they have, because some people can have pain, horrendous pain, where there's no arthritis at all, and it's been put down as arthritis. And there are other people where they have bone on bone, horrendous degeneration, hardly any cartilage in a joint, for example, and yet they've never had any pain. And I know that for a fact from a friend of mine, or husband of a friend of mine, who had scans on both his hips, because he suddenly, and it was suddenly, within a few days of surgery, major surgery on his heart, suddenly began to have problems with his hip. And within a few weeks, he'd gone into a typical arthritic hip pattern and increasing pain. So when they did the scans, they found that hip, there was no arthritis, it was bone on bone. And they would put that down as the cause of his pain and his loss of movement, which all happened within weeks. Whereas that sort of arthritis, it takes years and years to develop. But what was interesting was the other hip was almost exactly the same. It had a little bit of cartilage, but he never had any problem with that, nor for the next, I think, 12 years after that until he died. So arthritis is basically not, you can't say arthritis is a cause of pain. So if your physios have that understanding as well, and then they can help you look at the links and triggers and things like that, then, you know, that's great, rather than having to refer to a psychotherapist, which is talk therapy, and that's not necessarily what you require. It's more about learning the language of your body, what's going on here.
It's in the book, I've had psychotherapy. I had psychotherapy in my 40s. I started some, when I'd started to read all the mind-body books, yours included, and I had a very sudden and difficult bereavement at the time, and my pain got worse, and I started therapy, and then it went on to Zoom, and I'd only done, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 live sessions with this lady who was wonderful, and and she knew all about Dr. Sarno, and she knew about she's mentioned in the book, and ISTDP was what she practiced.
Right. I was going to say, the type of psychotherapy you have, it's not just talk therapy. It's if you're seeing somebody who has an understanding of the mind body, rather than just talk therapy to talk about what's happened. That's the sort of therapy that's better for you.
Yes, I know. I later read the Dr. Schubiner very much recommends that type.
Yes.
So, but once it had gone on to Zoom, I just didn't like it. I didn't. I mean, this is fine, and
we're just having a chat.
Yes, I know, but therapy on Zoom, I couldn't.
Yeah, I understand.
And I just stopped it, and I said to her, "Well, I'm doing well anyway, so that's that." So yeah, the mind body.
But it sounds like you've done incredibly well, even, you know, yourself. I mean, for a start, it was back in 2005, wasn't it, when you actually had your first son? You did actually have a fall.
Yes.
So do you want to just briefly say, and then, you know, condense the next 14 years?
That chapter 1 is a condensation of 14 years, and it was perhaps the hardest chapter to write. But for the benefit of viewers, if there are viewers for this, yes, I was going for a walk with my husband in the evening. It was a nice hot summer's day, and we had a nice evening walk, and it lovely light in the evening, and I climbed over this stile, and it collapsed under me, and so my legs sort of shot out in the splits, which I wasn't prepared to do.
No, quite be a bit of a shock.
It turned out I'd done some genuine damage by I tore the labrum in cartilage in my hip, and I damaged the ligaments. All my pelvic joints came very sort of weak. I had a lot of chiropractic and physio and things to try and stabilize them, and they didn't. But where are we? So that was the start of it. But when I started learning about the mind-body connection, I realized that I had put my mother into a care home about 2 weeks before this, and I was in a lot of stress. I was trying to deny it, but she hadn't wanted to go, and you know, it felt like my brother and I had kidnapped her really and taken her to this strange place. And of course she settled down, and she was happy as well, as happy as she would have been anywhere, and she was safe. And I visited her loads of times for the
It
next
was
3
a
years.
hugely stressful
It's
experience and a
very
lot of guilt
stressful.
involved.
Absolutely, so much guilt.
Yeah.
And I think this real, genuine accident sort of triggered the back pain, because I didn't have the back pain straight away. What I had was pain in the groin from injuring. I probably did actually strain the groin as muscles as well as
you could well have done.
yeah.
Nobody will know whether a
No.
labrum issue was there already or started, but you know, the main thing is to, for that sort of thing, use a whole person approach to actually consider addressing, if you knew that at the time, you know, the guilt and the pressure and everything related to putting your mother in a home, as
Yes.
well as treating what could well have been an acute injury to the tissues. So that
Yes.
needs to happen. It's more about when the pain goes on and on and on,
Yes.
past when the tissues would have healed. That's when this sort of work really comes into its own.
Yes, yes. So the 14 years, it was mainly back pain. I mean, that was the worst. But then I got at various stages when I'd had various treatments and that had sort of maybe settled the back down, the pain would move. Pain in my thighs, that was awful. Sometimes I've struggled to walk. And I suppose it was fibromyalgia, but I thought, what on earth is this odd, strange thing called fibromyalgia, which I'd never heard of in my life before. And my GP said, "Oh well, it's not uncommon, and we don't have a cure for it, and carry on with your amitriptyline." And
Wow.
so,
and it's that lack of hope, you know, being told there's no cure.
Yeah.
You know, hope is such an important thing, and
Yes.
to be told that's it, there's no cure, you've got to just put up with it.
Yes.
That doesn't help, does it?
No. So what else you want to know from the 14 years?
I know we don't need to go through everything, but I know that from your book that you saw a lot of physios, osteopaths, chiropractors, doctors, etc., etc. And we don't need to talk about them all, because basically you were still going from one to another, one pain, and then developing another, and still having your back pain.
Yeah.
So how do you come across the mind-body work then?
Well, you see, this was just shit by chance, which is also sort of something that makes me think, well, if I hadn't come across it, I might still be searching. But I read The Guardian online sometimes, not all the time. I came across an article on The Guardian about chronic pain from somebody who had recovered.
Yeah.
In her case, it was RSI, but had gone up, you know, up her arms and her shoulders, and she'd had some very strange, odd diagnosis. This isn't somebody I know. This is a freelance journalist.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
But she then said in the article that she had looked at her inner life, those were the words, and it never occurred to me to do that. And which was silly, given I'd had psychotherapy in my 40s, but never mind, that's how it was. And she then said that she'd used the work of Dr. Sarno. Now, I had come across the name of Dr. Sarno once before, because I'd read, I subscribed for a while to a journal called Talk Back, which is published by the Back Care. And
that would have been mentioned because I came on the scene with Back Care. And so somebody who was working there at the time and I worked together to put a lot of information out there about Dr. Sarno.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I got rid of the journals, those ones, so I can't check. But I remember thinking at the time, oh, this isn't relevant to me, because I've got a real problem with my back, because I've got spondylolisthesis.
Oh, yes.
Which is nasty, isn't it? You see it on the scan. I nearly died when I saw it on the scan, the slip vertebra.
But then there's also evidence that shows that when you, excuse me, test results of scans are explained in medical terms and shown to the person whose scan it is, that can actually make things worse. And it can actually increase the amount of money involved in helping that patient recover, because they get worse. And no surprise there, because of the fear. We know fear drives pain. So no wonder.
Yes, exactly. The fear. So back to this article. So I thought, well, I've come across this chap's name before and I didn't really take it in. I gave the journals away to a friend who had back pain, and I thought, but I'm going to read what Dr. Sarno actually said. So I bought one of his books, and I bought the author of the article had read a different one, but I thought I'm going to read Healing Back Pain, because back pain was what predominated for me. And I just thought I stumbled on a gold mine. To me, I thought, I've never been told to think like this in all these 14 years, and yet this makes such sense. I know some people say it doesn't and they struggle with it, but to me it made total, utter sense. Perhaps because I've already had some therapy in my life and I've read a bit of Freud and so on, but I didn't. And then, you know, when you go on Amazon and people who read this also read the other, then I found your book, which just reinforced everything.
Great. Yeah, no, that's really good. And I know you were doing really well yourself, and having the odd ups and downs, as everybody does, and it wasn't a straight journey, which is actually usually better, because as long as you learn from the challenges, you know, then they can actually be really helpful as you progress. But I know you then came across Curable as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I felt that somehow I just needed an extra boost at that time, because I was working with your book, I was working with Dr. Sarno's books, and I did feel a great improvement. But then I had an occasion when I was really, really anxious, and the pain came back. And again, I can't remember how I came across it, but you know, with the internet, you do. So I thought, I'm going to give this a try, because it was good value. And I thought, well, it'll maybe structure it for me a bit better.
Yeah. And you're no different from many people who, you know, many people do struggle on and on and on without recognizing that actually sometimes having, whether it's one person reflecting back or a group or through the app and their groups, it can be really helpful to help reflect back. And also, if you're in a group like you were, being able to hear from other people, you can start reflecting on what's been going on for you as well. This is so much of an unconscious process as well, which is why quite often when we're working on our own, we tend to go around in circles. Not always, but you know, we gain insights, but often there are people who could really benefit from having some additional support and guidance. And you did that by going with Curable, which is great.
Yes. Okay. Well, then I just thought, see, I'd actually written a predecessor to this book. And I thought, I'm going to write about it again. And lots of people post my recovery journey or something on various websites, but I thought, I want to write a proper book, because I like writing. Having done a previous book and also a novel, which I know you were kind enough to have read.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I am retired. So yes, I've done a certain amount of voluntary work throughout my retirement. I haven't just totally done nothing with it, but I do like writing, and I feel it's satisfying. It's creative. I just like words, and I like honing sentences and paragraphs and choosing words. And
did you find it quite cathartic as well?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But I tell you, I wrote a lot of it in lockdown. Right. I wrote all the middle chapters in lockdown, and then of course some of the chapters refer to the time that we then moved house, and I had a lot of stress, and some of the pain came back, so I did a bit more work. And then of course I had to write those extra chapters, and I had to do the first chapter because that was, as I say, 14 years condensed. So they were written later, but the middle chapters were all written in lockdown. And I have to say that from my point of view, I really enjoyed lockdown.
Many people did.
I think that's true. I felt very sorry for people struggling with, you know, babies or teenagers and living in a flat and things like that. And the, oh gosh, all the health workers, all the key workers you know, they had a terrible time. But, you know, I was lucky. I lived in the country. We had lovely walks. The weather was great. I didn't have any pressure.
No, that's good.
So,
and I think it just shows, like you say, when you're moving house, that then you symptoms came back. And this is recognizing this is a personal development journey. This is about learning the language of the body, starting to recognize when we're feeling stressed, when there's a trigger, some sort of emotional upset. The more we can become more emotionally aware, the more we can deal with that before it ends up with symptoms. But sometimes the symptoms come on, and then the awareness, the understanding means that you can step back and go, oh, okay, now what's going on? Maybe I wasn't doing what I needed for myself as much as I needed. So therefore, stepping back and upping your self-care and working on whatever's going on, which is great.
Absolutely. The point is, the real point, I sit and I think the fear has gone out of it. The fear, because I understand now what's going on. And it's amazing if I might sit and meditate for a little while or talk to my brain for a while. And then I think, golly, that pain that had threatening to come back, it's gone away again. It's just astonishing, but it does.
Yes, it really changes your whole outlook on life, doesn't it?
Yes.
Life and living, how we live our lives.
Yes.
Well, congratulations, Liz, not just on your own recovery, but on your book as well. I did find it a really good read, and I have no doubt it will help many people. And it's nice to have another book, and another book in the UK as well, which is really good.
Thank you. Thank you. I have had some kind comments from a few other professionals, which has felt good. So, but
lovely.
Thank you so much for your interest and your promotion of it.
You're welcome. I think it's really important, as I said before, you know, that so many people are doing lots of things, and gradually things are changing. But that might be somebody writing a course, it might be somebody working with a client, or somebody writing a book. It doesn't matter. Altogether, there's a shift happening because there are so many more people reaching out and helping other people now. So that's wonderful, and thank you, because I know it will make a difference.
Okay. Good. I'm thrilled if I've made a difference. You know, it was a bit of wanting to make a difference, wanting to tell my story, cathartic, all these things. Yeah.
Yeah. But the knock-on effect of that, I'm sure, will be positive as well.
Okay. Good.